Welcome, and continue listening as the story moves into a turbulent and uncertain era when leadership was not fixed and survival depended on the rise of unexpected deliverers. In this period, known as the time of the Judges, the Israelites faced repeated threats from surrounding peoples, including the Idumeans, whose hostility added to the growing instability. In moments of danger, leaders emerged one after another, beginning with Otniel, who delivered the people from oppression. Soon after, conflict arose with Eglon, representing the continued pressure from neighboring kingdoms. New threats followed from Canaanite power under King Jabin and his general Sisera. In response, a remarkable leader arose in Deborah, both a prophetess and a poet, who, alongside Barak, led the Israelites to victory near Mount Tabor. This triumph was later preserved in some of the earliest forms of Hebrew poetry, reflecting both faith and memory. Despite such victories, the people continued to suffer, especially from nomadic incursions that disrupted their growing settlements. Out of this hardship came Gideon, also known as Jerubbaal, who achieved a decisive victory in the plain of Jezreel, bringing a brief period of peace and prosperity. However, this stability did not last. Internal conflict arose under Abimelech, whose struggle for power led to violent feuds, particularly with the people of Shechem. Other leaders followed, such as Jair, but external threats persisted, especially from the Amalekites and the Philistines. In this cycle of conflict and deliverance, figures like Jephthah and the powerful yet tragic Samson emerged, each playing a role in resisting enemies but unable to secure lasting unity. Alongside them were lesser-known judges, including those from the tribe of Zebulun, who also contributed to the leadership of the people during these unsettled times. This era is marked by repeated struggle, brief victories, and the constant search for stability in a land still not fully at peace. The period that followed was marked by instability, danger, and repeated conflict, as the people of Israel struggled to defend themselves against surrounding enemies while lacking a single, unified authority. Among their earliest deliverers arose Othniel, the son of Kenaz, who was both a relative and the son-in-law of Caleb. Gathering a determined group of fighters, Othniel marched against a ruler of the Edom, also known as Idumean, and succeeded in freeing the southern tribes of Judah and Simon from oppression. Yet this success remained limited in its effect. It did not extend to the other tribes of Israel, and beyond the region of Mount Ephraim, the achievement was scarcely known. A more decisive and far-reaching act was carried out by Ehud, the son of Gera, belonging to the tribe of Benjamin. At that time, the Israelites suffered under the domination of the Moabites, whose king, Eglon, ruled over them. Ehud did not call his people immediately to open battle. Instead, he formed a deliberate plan to remove the source of their oppression. Presenting himself before King Eglon, he claimed to carry a tribute, a gift symbolizing submission. Gaining a private audience, he struck the king with a concealed double-edged sword and escaped, securing his departure by closing the doors behind him. After this act, Ehud summoned the men of Ephraim and Benjamin. Together they took control of the crossings of the Jordan River, preventing the Moabite forces from retreating eastward. The enemy, cut off and disorganized, was defeated completely. Following this victory, the tribes on the western side of the Jordan were freed from Moabite interference for a long period. From another direction came renewed pressure, as the Philistines harassed the Israelites. During this time, Chamber, the son of Anath, arose as a defender. Using a simple agricultural tool, an ox goad, he struck down many of the attackers. Yet such isolated acts of courage, though remarkable, were not sufficient to secure lasting safety. Instead, they often provoked further hostility. A greater threat emerged under Jabin, a Canaanite ruler who, with the support of neighboring leaders, sought to destroy the Israelites entirely. The land fell into disorder. Roads became unsafe, forcing travelers to avoid the main routes. At this critical moment, when no established leader stood ready, an unexpected figure came forward. This was Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, known both as a prophetess and as a composer of sacred verse. She took upon herself the role of guide and encourager, described as a mother to the people of Israel. Through her words, she stirred courage among those who had become fearful. At her urging, Barak, the son of Abinoam, accepted the task of leading the people into battle, though he did so with hesitation. Under Deborah's direction, warriors from various tribes gathered, and the opposing forces met near Mount Tabor. There they confronted the army commanded by Sisera, the general of King Jabin, who until then had remained undefeated. In the encounter that followed, the Canaanite forces were overcome, and their power was broken. Sisera himself fled, seeking refuge, but his escape ended when he was slain by Jael, the wife of Heber, a member of the Kenites, a group allied with Israel. This victory was later commemorated in a composition known as the Song of Deborah, an early example of Hebrew poetic tradition, celebrating both the triumph and the divine favor believed to have made it possible. Yet the struggles of the Israelites did not end with this success. The surrounding nations continued their attacks, and the tribes, often divided, struggled to resist. Among the most persistent enemies were the Midianites, who carried out repeated raids. At the time of harvest, they would cross the Jordan River with large groups, bringing their tents, camels, and livestock. They seized the produce of the land, took away animals, and left the inhabitants in hardship. The fertile region of the Jezreel Valley, along with the surrounding territories, suffered most from these incursions. To protect what little they had, the people hid their supplies in caves and concealed places. Grain was processed in secret locations, rather than in open fields. In their distress, they turned again to their ancestral faith and gathered at Shiloh, where a figure described as a man of God, likely a member of the Levites, reproved them. He declared that their suffering was connected to their abandonment of their own principles and traditions. These words left a deep impression upon one man in particular, Gideon, also known as Jerubbaal, from the tribe of Manasseh. In his native place of Ophrah, there stood an altar dedicated to Baal or Astarte within a sacred grove. Gideon destroyed this altar and replaced it with one devoted to the God of Israel. This act provoked anger among the people of the town, who sought to punish him, but he gathered support from his fellow tribesmen, including those of Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. He established his camp near Endor, to the north of Mount Moor. There he reduced his forces, dismissing those who lacked resolve, and keeping only 300 chosen men. With this small group, he launched a sudden attack during the night, using horns, torches, and a unified battle cry declaring their allegiance to their God and their leader. They created confusion among the Midianite camp. The unprepared enemy fled in disorder and retreated across the Jordan River. This victory, achieved by a small force against a much larger host, was remembered for generations as a defining moment, often referred to as the Day of Midian, when a handful of determined fighters secured deliverance against overwhelming odds. Gideon continued his pursuit beyond the Jordan River, following the two fleeing kings of the Midianites, named Zebah and Zalmunna. These Midianites were a nomadic people who had long troubled the Israelites through raids and oppression. As Gideon advanced, he encountered Israelites who refused to provide food and supplies for his exhausted warriors. Their refusal was not overlooked. Gideon punished them for withholding aid at a moment of need, reinforcing the seriousness of unity in times of danger. He pressed forward and eventually overtook the Midianite kings. In the confrontation that followed, he inflicted a decisive and overwhelming defeat upon them. This victory was so complete that the Midianites never again recovered their former strength or influence over the Israelites. The threat that had weighed upon the land for so long was removed. In gratitude for this deliverance, the people of Israel offered Gideon a position of supreme authority. They proposed that he should become their king, and that this kingship should pass to his descendants after him. This was a significant moment, as it suggested a transition from tribal leadership to a more centralized form of rule. However, Gideon refused this honor. He declined not only for himself, but also for his family, choosing not to establish a monarchy. Despite this refusal, Gideon made a decision that had lasting consequences. He established his hometown, Ophrah, as a place of religious gathering, attracting pilgrims. This development drew attention away from the established sanctuary at Shiloh, where the official religious services were conducted by the priests and Levites. The rise of Ophrah as a religious center caused dissatisfaction, particularly among the men of the tribe of Ephraim, whose territory included Shiloh. They viewed this shift as a challenge to their influence. After Gideon's death, tensions that had been restrained during his lifetime began to surface. Conflicts arose between the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Manasseh, to which Gideon had belonged. These disputes weakened the unity of the people. Gideon's victories had also brought wealth into the land. The spoils taken from defeated enemies included valuable goods, which were distributed among the Israelites. As a result, many towns became centers of prosperity. Trade increased, and merchants from Phoenicia, known for their skill in commerce, were able to travel safely through the region with their caravans. Agreements were made with these traders, and they were placed under the protection of a deity referred to as Balberith, meaning the Lord of the Covenant. This represented another step toward the blending of Israelite practices with those of surrounding peoples. Amid this growing prosperity and cultural exchange, internal strife intensified. The men of Ephraim, driven by jealousy and ambition, sought to create division among the numerous sons and grandsons of Gideon, who numbered 70. In this effort, they found an ally in Abimelech, one of Gideon's sons. Abimelech's position was unique. His mother was from the city of Shechem, a central and influential settlement. Through this connection, he gained the support of the people of Shechem, who chose him as their leader. Once in power, Abimelech acted with ruthless determination. He eliminated his rivals by killing his brothers, securing his authority through violence. Only one brother, the youngest named Jotham, managed to escape. Jotham, seeking to expose the injustice of Abimelech's actions, stood upon Mount Gerizim, a prominent elevation near Shechem, and delivered a parable. In this story, the trees sought a king to rule over them. They approached the olive tree, the fig tree, and the vine, each representing useful and productive forms of life. Each of these refused, unwilling to abandon their beneficial roles. Finally, they turned to the bramble, a thorny and unproductive plant, which accepted the offer. The bramble warned that if it were not recognized as king, it would bring destruction upon the others. This parable served as a warning. It illustrated the danger of choosing an unworthy leader and hinted at the consequences that would follow. In time, the meaning became clear. Hostilities broke out between Abimelech and the people of Shechem who had once supported him. His rule, marked by cruelty, ended violently when he was mortally wounded. To avoid the disgrace of being killed by an opponent in a humiliating manner, he ordered his own armor-bearer to end his life. After the fall of Abimelech, the tribes living west of the Jordan River, known as the Cisjordanic tribes, appeared to decline and strengthen organization. In contrast, the tribes living east of the Jordan, particularly those connected with Manasseh and the region of Gilead, undertook new campaigns. They advanced into the elevated lands of the Horan, a region known for its rocky terrain and fortified settlements. There, they captured 60 cities built of stone. This area came to be called Havoth Jair, meaning the settlements of Jair, after a leader associated with these conquests. Despite these successes, the Israelites soon faced serious threats from multiple directions. On one side, the Ammonites, a people living east of the Jordan River, launched attacks. On the other side, the Philistines, who inhabited the coastal regions, also began to press against Israelite territories. These simultaneous pressures weakened the already divided tribes. The Ammonites first forced the Israelites out of their open lands, then turned their attention to fortified positions. Their attacks were effective, particularly against the tribes of Ephraim and Judah. At the same time, the Philistines attacked from the opposite direction. They targeted the tribe of Dan initially, and extended their assaults to include the tribes of Benjamin and Judah. Despite these dangers, the tribes did not unite in a coordinated defense. The tribes east of the Jordan sought assistance from those in the west, particularly the tribe of Ephraim. However, the Ephraimites did not respond. Their inaction may have been due to self-interest or to the weakening of their own strength following the conflicts associated with Abimelech. In this period of instability, two figures emerged as leaders who provided temporary relief. These were Jephthah and Samson. Both were individuals who operated outside the established order, acting independently and without strict adherence to traditional structures. Their actions brought both benefit and disruption. Jephthah, originating from Gilead and belonging to the tribe of Manasseh, had been driven away by his own people. Forced into exile, he gathered around him a group of followers who lived outside the law, engaging in acts that challenged established authority. He became their leader through his boldness and skill. When the Ammonites attacked, the people of Gilead remembered Jephthah and his reputation. Their leaders approached him, asking for his help in defending their land. Jephthah responded with indignation, reminding them that they had rejected him and forced him into exile. He questioned why they now sought his assistance in their time of need. The elders persisted, offering him leadership over Gilead if he succeeded in defeating their enemies. This promise persuaded him to return. Before engaging in battle, Jephthah sent a formal message to the Ammonites, demanding that they cease their incursions. The Ammonites refused, claiming rights based on earlier history. Jephthah then traveled through the regions of Gilead and Manasseh, gathering warriors. He succeeded in assembling a force of determined fighters and led them into battle. His campaign resulted in a decisive victory. He defeated the Ammonites and took control of 20 cities that had been under their authority. After this success, conflict arose once again, this time within Israel itself. The tribe of Ephraim, as they had done previously with Gideon, expressed anger that Jephthah had achieved victory without their participation. They confronted him, leading to a civil war. Unlike Gideon, Jephthah did not yield to their demands. The men of Ephraim crossed the Jordan River near the town of Zaphon and prepared for battle. Jephthah met them with force, defeated them, and blocked their retreat along the river. His actions demonstrated both his strength and his unwillingness to submit to their authority. Although Jephthah had the potential to strengthen the tribes east of the Jordan, his period of leadership was brief. He ruled for only 6 years. He left no son to succeed him, only a single daughter. Her story, remembered with deep emotion, tells of how she became the victim of a vow made by her father in a moment of resolve. While one struggle was unfolding in the region called Gilead, located to the east of the Jordan River, another conflict was taking place elsewhere among the tribes of Israel. In Gilead, a leader named Jephthah, known for his strength in battle, was engaged in warfare against a people called the Ammonites, a neighboring nation that had long contested territory with Israel. At the same time, a different kind of struggle was being carried out by another figure, Samson. Samson belonged to the tribe of Dan, one of the 12 tribes descended from the sons of Jacob, also called Israel. His struggle was directed against the Philistines, a powerful and organized people who occupied the coastal regions along the Mediterranean Sea. These Philistines had claimed control over areas that had once been associated with the tribe of Dan, including the coast near a place called Joppa, a significant settlement along the shoreline. The tribe of Dan suffered under this domination. They were subject to the authority of the Philistines and felt the burden of their rule. Yet, despite their resentment, they lacked the strength and unity required to overthrow their oppressors. Unlike Jephthah, who had received support from various tribes during his campaign, Samson stood largely alone. The other tribes of Israel, aware of the strength and discipline of the Philistines, were filled with fear and hesitated to join in open resistance. Because he could not rely on the support of a united force, Samson adopted a different method of warfare. He did not engage in large, organized battles. Instead, he relied on sudden and unexpected actions, striking the enemy at moments when they were unprepared. His approach was based on surprise and cunning rather than on direct confrontation. This manner of fighting did not go without criticism. It was described in a saying that reflected both recognition and disapproval. The tribe of Dan was compared to a serpent lying in wait along a path, striking at the heels of a horse so that the rider would fall backward. This image suggested a form of attack that depended on stealth and indirect action rather than open strength, and it carried with it a tone of reproach. Samson is believed to have carried on this struggle for a period of 20 years. During that time, he inflicted damage upon the Philistines, yet his efforts did not lead to a lasting change in the balance of power. The condition of the Israelites remained largely the same. Even after his death, the Philistines continued to maintain their dominance over several tribes, including Dan and Benjamin, as well as Judah and Ephraim. Over time, the control exercised by the Philistines became even more severe. Their authority extended further, and the pressure upon the Israelites increased. The absence of unified leadership and coordinated resistance allowed this dominance to continue. After the period associated with Samson, other individuals arose who were regarded as deliverers. However, their impact was far less significant. 3 such figures are mentioned in succession. 2 of them came from the tribe of Zebulun, a group that had originally lived in areas removed from the sea. The third came from the tribe of Ephraim, one of the leading tribes in Israel. The first of these was Ibzan, associated with a place called Bethlehem within the territory of Zebulun. The second was Elon, connected to a town named Ajalon. The third was Abdon, identified as the son of Hil and described as a Perthoni, indicating his origin from a place called Perthon within the territory of Ephraim. Very little is known about these individuals. The records preserve their names and the locations where they were buried, but provide no detailed accounts of their actions. It is not even clearly stated which enemies they fought against or what specific achievements they accomplished. However, one detail offers a possible insight. The people of Zebulun, who had once been settled inland, later expanded their territory toward the coastal regions. This movement suggests that they may have displaced the Canaanite inhabitants who had previously lived there, gradually extending their control.